Hello everyone, this is part 36 of What If Naruto Passed the Genin test, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Be sure to like and subscribe, it gives me more motivation. Enjoy. Naruto and Sakura arrived at the Hokage's office 45 minutes before the meeting was scheduled to begin. The door was locked and the door-lined walkway on one of the higher floors of the complex was devoid of people. The only light came from the street lanterns below, as there was no one in any of the offices yet who turned on the walkway lamps, leaving the two Genin almost completely eclipsed, a happenstance Sakura attempted to take full advantage of. The kunoichi clung tightly to Naruto's arm, both her hands twined around one of his. Holding herself to him, she rested her cheek on his shoulder. Naruto hadn't been completely unaffectionate in return. He didn't complain when she'd nuzzled in as close as she had, only pointed out that when people began to arrive that they'd need to assume a more professional persona. Sakura had at first begun to protest, but quickly gave in and decided it was best to enjoy what time he allowed her to be as close as she was. They stood in silence for nearly half an hour and still no one was appearing. Naruto hadn't disallowed for the possibility of people being untimely, but he'd thought at least Shikamaru or one of the other Anbu heads would have been early. No matter, he told himself, glancing down at the kunoichi who looked as though she could be asleep on his shoulder. There's no rush. Things are perfectly on schedule. All I need to do is convince Tsunade to send me on towards Kiri and everything will be set. Maybe. Sakura, Naruto whispered. You awake? She answered happily, not opening her eyes. How do you think this debriefing is going to go? Sakura loosened her grip just enough to look up at him sleepily. I don't really know what to expect, she said quietly. But I guess she's going to give us some details about the situation in Suna, and from what Jiraiya said she might hand out assignments. Naruto. Yes. You don't think Tsunade is going to send you off anywhere too dangerous, do you? Naruto thought quickly, measuring a dozen different possibilities of what to say in his head, deciding on one in a second. I kind of hope she does, said the blonde. He felt Sakura's grip on him tighten slightly. If she does, then it will mean I'm somewhere where I can do a lot more good than I could in a safe place like Konoha. So you don't think you'd be useful back here with me? She asked. Naruto immediately saw the course towards which she was steering the conversation. He didn't think anyone could miss it. Sakura, he said comfortingly, reaching over and rubbing her shoulder with his free hand, honestly, I'd like to stay back here, but there are going to be battles to fight as far away from Konoha as Kumo and Oto, maybe even Kiri or Iwa, and if so, don't you want the best out there making sure we win those fights? I do, said Sakura, but there are going to be wars to fight on the home front too. I've got to change her focus, thought Naruto. Those are going to be political battles, Sakura, said Naruto. I may be out on the battlefield, but you'll be the one deciding what happens on a much grander scale, and through you, me. You're going to be my voice in the council chambers and my will at the ambassador's table. And I know you're ready for anything. Sakura nodded. Absolutely, she said. But, I really don't want you to go off and do anything that might get you killed, asked Naruto in a low voice. The kunoichi just nodded and Naruto inwardly grinned. Sakura, he said, that's a necessary risk. Chances right now are very, very high that I will be within a month or two, given what I'm likely to need to do for the cause. Sakura looked up at him in utter horror. How can you say that? She hissed. How are you supposed to change the world if you're S? I can't if I'm S, but I have to try and change the world, which involves putting myself in those kinds of situations, said Naruto, confusing her. If I trying, then I guess you might say it's all over. Sakura's terror showed on her face as she stared up at him. Naruto, she whispered. You don't really plan on doing anything reckless or foolhardy, do you? Kyuubi's consciousness burst into Naruto's like a thunderbolt. He could feel the demon lord's anxiety. No, not at all, said Naruto cajolingly. But I need her to think so. In chess the pawn's first, not the king or the queen. And this war will be no different. Sakura will stay back and head what needs to be done here, while I oversee the battlefield. You forget my means QB. Good. I was going to have to intercede if I thought otherwise. And what would you do? Countered Naruto. But don't fool yourself. I'll fight more than my share of battles, however I'll always win. I never attempt something I can't do. Naruto quickly felt Kyuubi's consciousness recede again as Sakura looked down at the ground. What's the matter? He asked. Nothing, she whispered. Do what you have to. Naruto smiled to himself. Now for one quick suggestion. But don't think I'm just going to sit back here and let you out there, Sakura said before Naruto could respond. If you're sure to be out fighting this war, I'm going to make sure it's as short as possible. Wow, Naruto thought. I didn't have to say a word and she latched onto the idea almost psychically. What do you mean? He asked. Naruto, you're smarter than that, said Sakura bluntly. Naruto could sense a cold wall building up around her. Don't be stupid. I'll be doing everything I can politically to make sure that you're in harm's way for the least amount of time possible. I'll force the other villages to surrender with subterfuge. Sakura, said Naruto, surprised but pleasantly so by the edge in her voice. It's like you're thinking my thoughts before I can say them. Naruto quickly leaned down to her level and pressed his lips to hers in a gentle but firm kiss. The wall melted instantaneously and her face softened as Sakura kissed him back. She grinned and pressed up against him a bit, running her tongue along his lips playfully. Careful, said Naruto, standing up but leaving one arm around her shoulders. Now's not the time for that kind of behavior. Fine, said Sakura, but it will be later. Maybe, Naruto said half-heartedly. Oh trust me, said the kunoichi, I think I can convince you. Alright, but seriously, said the blonde, you're right about the politics. One of your jobs will be to do everything it takes to force the other villages' hands into surrender if at all possible. I'd rather not exterminate half the continent. One of my jobs, probed the kunoichi, did you have something immediate in mind? I do have one assignment for you during this debriefing, said Naruto. But I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. I won't, said Sakura, anything for you. Naruto nodded, pleased. I need you to convince Suna to send me and my strike force to Kiri. Sakura gulped, but nodded. Alright, I can do that. Why though? Kiri is going to be completely off balance after the fight in Suna, said Naruto. And I think that if I can strangle the village then it will throw off Orochimaru's entire war effort. All he'll have left are his own worthless troops, and Kumo, which we beat the out of here. Define strangle, said Sakura, I'll need to know what to convince Suna to let you do. You may have the freedom to move without orders, but she can still curtail that if we're not careful and I wouldn't have the authority to get it back for you without, maybe going so far as to Sunid. We don't need to talk about that, said Naruto quickly. I'm not going to ask that of you. I'd do it for you in a heartbeat, said the kunoichi. I'm just saying. Don't worry. All you need to do is convince her that Kiri needs to be restrained. Tell her that you think it wise to send me down there to cut off their supply lines and paralyze their infrastructure. That's manageable, said Sakura. I'm not even going to ask what you really plan to do, but I promise you, as soon as news reaches me, and it will reach me before anyone else in the village, I'll spin it into an act of fate and make everyone love you for it. Thank you. And also, this will give you leverage over the other villages in any upcoming ambassadorial meetings. So it's going to be big then? Asked Sakura. When Kumo and Oto hear about what I'm going to do they'll piss their pants for fear that I'm coming after them next. I can use that, said Sakura. Good, mumbled Naruto. Now let's be quiet, someone's coming. Sakura turned as she heard footsteps coming up the stairs in the dark. Naruto very quickly bent down and gently kissed just beside her lips. The kunoichi turned for a brief second to return the gesture, then the blonde stepped aside, leaving a few feet between them. It's a matter of principle, Naruto heard a deep voice, Jiraiya's, say as a mound of spiky white hair poked over the top of the stairs, followed immediately by both the Toad Sannin and Tsunade. I'm not going to send him into a situation where. Jiraiya froze when he saw Naruto and Sakura standing by the Hokage's door, then quickly composed himself. Good morning you two, said the Sannin. Tsunade looked up from a large scroll she was reading, and smiled when she saw the Junin. Naruto, Sakura, I'm glad to see you. The two Junin bowed respectfully but didn't answer as Tsunade and Jiraiya approached. The Hokage reached into her new green robes and pulled out a tiny key which she inserted in the lock. Tsunade opened the door and quietly beckoned everyone inside, shutting the door behind them. "We've got a lot to discuss," said the Hokage once they were inside the office. They were the only 4 occupants, which left Sakura and Naruto looking around in fake anxiety. "What about the rest of the Junin?" asked Sakura. "And the Anbu Black Ops," said Naruto. "Aren't they going to be here for this?" Tsunade walked to her big mahogany desk and sat down in the leather-backed chair opposite it. "Yes," she said, "but not for a little while longer, and I'd like to talk with the 2 of you first, so it's good you were early. It keeps me from having to waste time keeping you later." "What can we do for you?" asked Naruto, leaning against the wall as both Sakura and Jiraiya took seats on either side of Tsunade's desk. "Let me preface this by saying Jiraiya told me about what you did in the battle," said Tsunade, throwing a glance to the other Sannin. Jiraiya just stared down at the floor. "And I'm extremely impressed and proud to say you're one of mine," continued the Hokage. "That's why I want you out in the thick of the battles we have to fight, and I've arranged for you to do just that." Naruto raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" he asked, resisting the urge to look over at Sakura since he knew where this was going. "Naruto," continued Tsunade, crossing her arms and looking directly at him. "Do you know what a cage Junin is?" "No," Naruto lied. "I've never heard of one." "I'm not surprised," said Tsunade. "Much like the position of steward, the cage Junin is an office rarely spoken of because of its shady nature. In short, during times of war, the Hokage can appoint one ninja of any rank or age to act as a kind of personal enforcer, the cage Junin. This ninja is immediately elevated past any other rank or regulation in the village, capable of doing whatever they deem necessary for the good of the village, and answerable only to the Hokage and steward." "And," Naruto probed, "you want to give me that TLE?" "Yes," said the Hokage. "I read the reports on you, listened to Jiraiya when he spoke about your skill and cunning, and I've concluded that you'd be excellent for the job. I personally disapprove of anyone having the kind of power I'm offering you, but I see that it's necessary if we want to get through this war alive. As of this moment, you are the cage Junin of Konoha, bound by no authority but mine and Sakura's directly. Understand?" "Yes," said Naruto humbly. "I do." Sakura looked over at the blonde approvingly. She knew things were going exactly the way he wanted them, and thusly, exactly the way she wanted them. "Good. I'm glad that was so easy," said Tsunade. "Furthermore, I've arranged for you to be given command of a strike force of 70 ninja of your choosing. They will be under your direct command, and your impunity to the law will extend to them when they are acting under your order." "Are you sure this is wise, Hokage-sama?" asked Naruto. "Do you think anyone should have this kind of power?" "It's necessary," said Tsunade, pinching the bridge of her nose. "And the mission will always come first. It will be your responsibility to protect the village however you see fit. Nonetheless, you must always operate only for the good of the village." "I'll do my best," said Naruto. "I trust you will," the Hokage responded. "After the meeting I'll see that you have an opportunity to choose your forces." "Actually," Naruto interrupted. "About that, yes. If I may, I've only got 2 requests. First, I want Nara Shikamaru on my team, and secondly, I want him to assemble the force." "Done," said Tsunade as there was a knock on the door. "Come in," she hollered. The door clicked open and 4 tall figures, each in a typical Anbu cloak and mask, strode in, taking up dispersed positions throughout the room. One of them reached up and quickly pulled off his mask when he saw Naruto and Sakura. "Glad to see the gang's all here," said Shikamaru, hanging the bone-white bird mask at his side on a nearly invisible hook. "So we can finally get things underway." "What do you mean?" asked Sakura. "Aren't there supposed to be more?" "Not really," said Shikamaru, grinning. "I said I was assembling the highest-ranked Junin in the village," said Tsunade, "and you and Naruto are them." "Who would be higher than the cage Junin and the steward?" she asked rhetorically. "Anyway, Naruto, it's ironic that you would request Shikamaru directly as one of your men, simply because I was going to assign him to you from the beginning." Shikamaru grinned and glanced over at the blonde. "I was looking forward to working with you," said the Nara. "This whole war thing is really troublesome, but I knew that you might be able to make some good of it." "I can certainly try," said Naruto. "Glad to have you aboard." "These are going to be your personal guard," said Tsunade, gesturing at the 3 other Anbu, all standing silently as statues about the room. They've been trained specifically to operate under the orders of the caged Genin. How long have you been planning on giving me the position? Asked Naruto. About a week now, said the Hokage. But these women have trained since they graduated the academy to take on this kind of role, just in case. We knew war might break out and a caged Genin might be called up, so we trained them for just such an occasion. Women, said Sakura in an undertone, glancing back at the Anbu. The three figures each reached up in unison, their robes falling away from the peaked forearms, and grabbed their masks with slender fingers. As the masks left their faces, the sound of Sakura's jaw hitting the floor was nearly audible. All three of the women looked to be in their early 20s or later teens, and all had similar facial structures. Naruto guessed they might be sisters, but that was where the similarities ended. One had fiery red hair with black streaks and a complexion as pale as the moon. Her lips were full and as red as rubies, matching the color of her eyeshadow. The redhead's fingernails were painted black and matched her dark eyes. The second was the tallest of the group, nearly even with Naruto, with hair so deeply brown it could have passed for black. Her nails and lips were both painted blue, and she stared intently at Naruto with pale green eyes from under her cheek-length bangs. The third, however, was the one Sakura couldn't stop glaring at. Her shoulder-length hair shone so brightly blonde it was nearly white, contrasting sharply with her Titan complexion and icy blue eyes. She crossed her arms in front of her chest and grinned at Naruto, seemingly making a point to completely look over Sakura. Pleased to meet you, Naruto-sama, said the three women in unison, their voices almost musical. Those are his personal guards, growled Sakura, wide-eyed and pointing a finger at the three strikingly beautiful women. What exactly does personal entail? Exactly what it sounds like, said the redhead, stepping across the room and positioning herself next to Naruto, who crossed his arms and looked impassive. We will be the ones to ensure that no harm comes to him. She smiled at Sakura, even as her dark eyes narrowed. We'll be keeping an eye on him at all hours of the day and night. Sakura was about to erupt and say something about how those three wouldn't be capable of doing anything other than getting Naruto killed, but she first caught a glimpse of Naruto shaking his head subtly at her. The pink-haired kunoichi swallowed the lump in her tea and looked at him a minute longer as Tsunade stood up. Don't worry, Naruto thought, trying to impart to her with his eyes what he was thinking. They're just guards. They're nothing more than that. Sakura nodded as though she had somehow received the message. The sisters, Tsunade began, are each trained to perfection in two ninja arts. Trina, the redhead, specializes in ninjutsu and genjutsu. Karena is the brunette with blue lips and focuses primarily on genjutsu and taijutsu. And Alicia has trained her entire life to master taijutsu and summoning ninjutsu. Separately they're each lethal fighters, but all three together represent one of the slyest groups in the nation, probably rivaling Neji and his kin. You might say they're our secret weapon. Trina, the redhead, turned to Naruto and stood a little closer than what was called for by the situation. And we're yours to command, she said. Sakura crossed her arms and looked away. I appreciate it, Naruto responded, smiling. Indeed, said Jiraiya grumpily. Tsunade, why don't you get more to the point of this debriefing and fill these two in on what happened at Suna? That way we can get on with things. Agreed, said Tsunade, sitting back down and resting her hands on the desk. Trina, Karena, and Alicia all walked to Naruto and stood beside him. Naruto, however, shifted to his feet and took a step forward, standing behind Sakura's chair. The battle at Suna went better than most of us expected, continued the Hokage, but the situation is still far from good. While Oto and Kiri initially had the upper hand, Konoha forces quickly swept through the battlefield and crushed the combined enemy army. We drove them from Suna and wiped out sizable portions of their armies, but then the battle turned on us. To make a long story short, Orochimaru and the Fourth, who'd both been absent up until that point, appeared on the field and began to decimate our forces. Suna was CS-pled and we lost many of our better ninja. Jiraiya engaged the Fourth alone, while I attacked Orochimaru with the help of Mitogai and Sarutobi Asuma. Together, the four of us managed to distract those two long enough for the combined Konoha and Suna armies to utterly rout the Kiri and Oto forces. Sounds like we kicked ass, said Sakura. We lost a lot of good men, said Jiraiya, and we didn't manage to kill that bastard Orochimaru or the Fourth. His voice was bitter, which is why I'm not about to call it a victory. It was far from a glorious win, said the Hokage, but it did provide us with a valuable opportunity. She turned to Naruto. Suna was, as I said, onepiece will be unable to aid us in any kind of offensive for some time. It could be weeks or months before they muster the strength to do anything productive. At the same time though, Kiri, Oto, and Kumo are completely off guard. They were expecting to wipe us out quickly, but when we repulsed their attacks it shattered their momentum. They're open and vulnerable, all three of them. You, she said, pointing at the cage Genin, have a golden opportunity to put your strike force to good use here in the next day or two. Both Naruto and Sakura turned their full attention on the Hokage. What did you have in mind? Asked the cage Genin. What do you think I should do? Well, said Tsunade, right now there are several options open to you. I'll be taking the bulk of our forces to strike at Kumo directly while they're off guard, and I'll be leaving as soon as the ninja for the assault can be organized. My personal suggestion to you would be that you set up a perimeter around Oto and try to snare any important nin in a trap. If you could K the generals, then it might give us an edge in the future. I have been asked to get a shot in at that Kimimaro there, said Naruto. He got the jump on me here and nearly did me in. He was also the one who ked Kakashi-sensei, and that alone is unforgivable. I think I might just do that Tsunade. You'd be good for it, said Jiraiya. 70 ninja aren't enough to assault a village directly, but it's a perfect size force to set up a net for VIPs. I agree, said Shikamaru. No, said Sakura, drawing every eye in the room to her. I don't think that's a good idea. Everyone was silent for a moment until Jiraiya spoke up. Why not? He asked coarsely. It would give us a chance to take out a sound general or two. It's a bad idea, said the steward, leaning forward and resting her hands on Tsunade's desk. She scanned the faces looking at her without emotion and then continued. It would spread the strike force out too thin. For Naruto to set up an effective net, he'd have to separate his men and rush about on a moment's notice to wherever a general or VIP was spotted, heightening the risk of them getting away and blowing the cover. Also, it would make our forces all the more vulnerable just because they're waiting in ambush and so spread out. Good girl, thought Naruto. Just keep that up. And finally, if Orochimaru and the fourth were to show up, I doubt that Naruto or the sisters, the word sounded caustic on her tongue, would be able to survive an encounter with them directly, especially if Orochimaru caught them alone and fought them one-on-one. The room was silent as everyone ruminated on what she'd said. What would you suggest, Sakura? Asked Naruto in a soft voice. The steward leaned back in her chair, resting her head just an inch to the right of Naruto's thigh. She looked as though she were thinking very carefully to burn a little time and give people time to reach the same conclusion she and Naruto had already come to. Kiri, she said finally. Naruto should go to Kiri and harass their supply lines and logistically important sites. He could move in and use guerrilla tactics, drawing out the mist army and then attacking it with small groups that can easily retreat and disappear into the surrounding terrain. It would not only hold Kiri at bay and keep them off of Tsunade's ass while she dealt with Kumo, but it would soften them up for a full-scale invasion later on. That could take time, said Shikamaru. It's not a bad idea, but we can't afford to stretch this conflict out any longer than a week or two. Without Tsunade to provide support, we only have the resources to maintain a full-scale war for a month at most. Harassing supply lines is fine for a siege, but it only weakens them gradually. And setting up a net for VIPs could take even longer, said the Kunoichi. We'd only get one shot at any of them before cover was blown, and if we wasted that it would have been completely useless. If Naruto's strike force moves to strike at Kiri with guerrilla tactics, it would give us a chance to completely CSPLE the one force Orochimaru has left that's in reasonably sound condition. I agree with the steward, Hokage-sama, said Kurena. Naruto-sama's forces would be much better suited to operating in covert situations to deal damage to the enemies on a larger scale than to wait for an opportunity that might never come. It would be better to move for an opportunity that we ourselves make than to wait and react to an action our enemies may never take, said Alicia, the blonde. Naruto, asked Tsunade. Ultimately you can do what you want. The decision'll pass to you. Naruto looked between everyone gathered and slipped one hand down Sakura's chair just enough to touch her shoulder with the tips of his fingers. I'll take them to Kiri, he said resolutely. Alicia, Kurena and Sakura are all correct. It would be better to act ourselves than to wait on Oto to make a mistake. Pressuring Kiri will ensure they can't attack you while you're at Kumo, and if the opportunity presents itself, I might even get a shot at the Mizukage. Settled then, said Tsunade. Naruto will go to Kiri with his strike force and hold them down there. I will take the majority of the army to Kumo and try to subdue them, but that still leaves the issue of Oto and Orochimaru. We have the advantage in might over any one village, but the enemy's alliance puts us at a severe disadvantage now that Suna has been removed from the picture. We can't spare the men to both attack Kumo effectively and hold Oto at bay. Orochimaru is forcing us to spread ourselves out thin in order to even have a chance, said Shikamaru. A clever move, you must admit. It was, said Naruto, but I think Orochimaru overlooked one crucial factor. I think all of you are overlooking one crucial factor that might just be what it takes to decide between ultimate victory and defeat. Everyone turned to look at the newly appointed Kage Junin. And what would that be? Asked the Hokage. Naruto just grinned and looked over to Jiraiya, then between Sakura and Tsunade. The crane, said Naruto. Everyone was silent, but after a moment a look of realization dawned on Jiraiya's face. That's right, said the Sannin in red. There's the crane organization to consider. They might be willing to provide some kind of service given the circumstances. Tsunade glanced between the recently returned ninja warily. What are you suggesting? She asked. That we hire out a band of mercenaries. Why not? Said Naruto. It would be a win-win situation for both us and them. After all, we need the men and have the money to hire them, and fighting Orochimaru would go right along with the current contract to attack his forces. I may not be willing to hand the key to the city over to them, but all we'd be doing is paying them to act as a reinforcement garrison for Konoha. That way you could take a larger force to hit Kumo while Sakura and Jiraiya would have more men to defend the village. Tsunade turned to Jiraiya. Do you think you could arrange that? She asked hastily. We'd need them here within 2 days, 3 at the most. Jiraiya straightened up. Not in 3 days, said the Sannin. I'd have to go to the Earth Country since their only home base that I know of is in a small village there. Then there's the problem of convincing them to actually take our side and getting their mercenaries here in a timely fashion. They're incredibly well organized, said Naruto. If you could strike a deal with them, we'd have their full military support within a 52 hours. It's convincing them to openly fight for us that would be a problem. The crane has never blatantly taken sides in any kind of large-scale conflict. Money is a non-issue, said the Hokage, a trace of excitement in her voice. We'd pay whatever they wanted for the crane's full support and cooperation. This could be the last measure we need to turn this fully to our advantage. I'll do it, said Jiraiya. But I can't promise anything. They might not be willing to help, but we can at least try. Go, said Tsunade. We don't have time to discuss that any farther. Gather an escort if you want one and leave as soon as you can. Naruto almost couldn't stop himself from grinning as Jiraiya stood up and straightened his robes a bit. I'll travel alone, said the Sannin, walking for the door. Thank you, Naruto, this was a wonderful idea. Jiraiya opened the door and left silently into the early morning. When should we leave for Kiri? Asked Naruto as soon as the door shut, not wasting a second. Tsunade got up and walked around the desk to a cabinet. Pulling it open with a loud creak, she removed a large book made of yellowed parchment and set the volume on the desk. As soon as you can afford to, she said, opening the large book and flipping through the pages. The volume was a roster of ninja currently on active duty in Konoha. Tsunade found what she was looking for and turned the volume so Naruto could clearly see the names written in neat rows down the pages. These are the ninja I would recommend you select from for your force, Naruto, said the Hokage. You can have anyone you want, but these are some of the best. Naruto turned to Shikamaru and beckoned him over. Shikamaru, I'll leave selecting the force to you. You're better at matters like this than I am, and you know everyone and their strengths. Shikamaru nodded and quickly picked up the book. He ran his finger down the columns, mouthing the names silently to himself. Can I take this for now, Hokage-sama? Asked the Anbu specialist. I'll return it immediately once I'm done. Of course, said Tsunade. Do what you have to. Shikamaru bowed respectfully and turned back to Naruto. I'll assemble the troops and meet you outside the West Wall construction zone in 4 hours. Is that enough time for you to prepare, sir? 4 hours? Asked Naruto. 4 hours, Sakura mumbled almost inaudibly, looking down at the floor. I can be ready in 1, continued the Kage Junin. but is 4 enough to assemble everyone we need? Absolutely, said Shikamaru. Like you said, I know the men and I already had a list of candidates I was going to recommend to you for the positions. I'll just collect them and meet you there. Naruto nodded and Shikamaru left the room, half running, half walking with the volume under his arm. Soon it shifted and looked between Naruto and Sakura, crossing her arms. You certainly know how to clear a room, said the Hokage. I try, said Naruto. I just hope Jiraiya can get the crane to cooperate. Indeed, they could be instrumental. Soon it glanced out the window at the lightening sky. If we can secure their loyalty, it would free up enough men for this offensive to cover a full eastern front. That's the idea, said Naruto, looking down at Sakura. Kurena stepped forward and stood directly next to Naruto. Her sisters quickly joined her, ringing in the cage Genin. We're behind you the whole way, said the woman. And in front of you for that matter, said Trina. Don't worry, we'll be there to protect you. I appreciate that, said Naruto. But I'll be relying on the 3 of you for other things. I can handle my own personal security. You'll be busy elsewhere, I'd imagine. Whatever you say, said Trina flatly. What do you? Actually, Naruto interrupted, I'd be thankful for it very much if you 3 went to help Shikamaru round up the troops. Track him down and do whatever he tells you. Trina, Kurena and Alicia all glanced about at one another, then Tsunade before turning back to Naruto and nodding. Yes sir, they said in unison. SC. So when do you think you'll be back from Kiri? Asked Sakura hesitantly, her voice masking a hint of anxiety. You won't keep me waiting too long, I hope. Naruto gave her hand a squeeze as they strolled slowly down the sidewalk. The two had been wandering almost aimlessly for an hour since the meeting let out shortly after Shikamaru left to gather Naruto's forces. I'd say 6 days at the most, said Naruto calmly. If we leave on time and travel at maximum efficiency, my men should arrive at Kiri by 6 tomorrow morning. We'll spend that day resting up and staking out the village, then I'll put my plans into action that night. It should take most of the night and we'll leave the next morning, quick, clean, and effective. That's only 4 days, said Sakura. What are you going to do with the other 2? You never know what may come up, Naruto shrugged. I'm just allotting for unexpected turns of events. Oh, no need to worry, said Naruto. I'll come back as soon as I can and I'll be just fine. You'd better, said Sakura looking up at him and forcing herself to smile widely. If you don't, I'm going to put you back together, then break you in 2 again. Naruto laughed convincingly. I said don't worry. He paused and looked up at the sky. I'm hungry, he said turning to Sakura. Let's go get lunch. All right, grinned the kunoichi, my treat of course. Absolutely not. Naruto gasped with exaggerated urgency and a cheesy look of horror. That would be completely unacceptable. A damsel like yourself paying for lunch, grotesque. Sakura chuckled and put one hand up to cover her mouth, mocking fear. I couldn't let something so obscene happen, Naruto growled, his tone righteously indignant. It would go against every natural order of things. Any offender of such an egregious crime must be stricken from the dinner roll. Sakura laughed. I'm sorry, she said happily. What in the world could I do to make it up to you? Anything at all. Well, said Naruto, pondering the question. Quick as lightning he swept down, wrapped Sakura in his arms and kissed her fierily. Then just as quick as he'd struck, and before Sakura could even respond, Naruto drew back and was again just holding her hand as they stood on the sidewalk. We can call it even now, he said with a smile. Yeah, said Sakura, dazedly. But now you're going to have to make that up to me. What? Asked the blonde. You can't just leave me hanging with a kiss like that, said Sakura. It's not fair. Sure I can, said Naruto jokingly. And I plan to. That's so mean of you. I know. Sakura grinned and looked away, then glanced back up at him as they resumed walking without a course. She opened her mouth like she was going to say something, but remained silent and just enjoyed the quiet. I've missed my true calling. I should have taken up acting, Naruto thought to himself. Now all I have to do is hope the message got through. SC. What in the thing hell were you thinking? Orochimaru roared, his face streaked with fury as he reared back. The Sannin swept forward, balling his hand into a fist and struck Sasuke full in the face with the crushing blow. Are you trying to undo us all? Sasuke took the hit unflinchingly even as he rocketed back and thudded against the cold stone wall. Bits of dust fell from the ceiling as he collapsed to the ground and Orochimaru, garbed in bloodstained robes, stalked over. Just because I have to do what you tell me doesn't mean I can't do something if you don't tell me not to, growled the Uchiha. Sasuke got to his feet and faced the Sannin as Orochimaru approached. Now why don't you lay off until you find some kind of concrete proof? Kabuto saw your clone leaving the complex, hissed Orochimaru. That's proof enough now that we know Naruto knew the invasion was coming and positioned himself perfectly to counter us. And now a letter turns up between you and the enemy. Circumstantial bulls at best, muttered Sasuke, wiping his bleeding lip and smearing the blood on his black sleeve. Tell Kabuto he can go F himself, unless you'd rather. The Uchiha spat on the ground at Orochimaru's feet. You little ingrate, said the Sannin, whirling away from Sasuke and looking to Minato who stood calmly next to Kabuto by the door with his arms crossed. I give you more power than you could ever dream of and this is how you repay me. Get a clue, yelled Sasuke. I didn't ask for this. I don't want this. I never asked you for your goddamn seal and I am going to get free of it. And when I do, Sasuke's voice lowered to an undertone as he strode forward and nearly whispered to Orochimaru. When I do get my freedom, I'm going to K you. I'm going to K you slowly and painfully and you're going to stay S like a good little corpse. Silence, said Orochimaru. Sasuke reared back like someone had struck him, but shook his head, recovered, and continued. And when you and your allies are all S, I'm going to go to Naruto. He'll help me K Itachi and all of Akatsuki for that matter, and I'll have had absolutely no use for you. Enough, Orochimaru growled. No, said Sasuke. I've had enough of your orders. Go to hell you goddamn bastard and let me free. Orochimaru spun around, hacking at Sasuke's face with his claws. The Uchiha didn't budge as his master's nails dug into his skin, spinning 4 troughs through his cheek and over the bridge of his nose. Even as Orochimaru followed through and prepared to strike again, Sasuke didn't move. The Sannin hesitated, looking at Sasuke with hateful eyes. What a pity, said the snake coolly, straightening up and rolling his shoulders. It looks like I've damaged my future body. Oh well, maybe some scars will add personality. Like you need any more, said Sasuke. You're already a spirited little S. Kabuto, said Orochimaru, catching his lieutenant's attention immediately. Take Sasuke-kun to your laboratory and give him another dose of the serum. See if you can't tame his tongue a bit and crack that troublesome wall he's built up around his remaining free will. Yes sir, said Kabuto, stepping forward hesitantly and putting his hand on Sasuke's shoulder. Let's go Sasuke. Bite me, said the Uchiha. Blood was de-sping down his face and staining his clothes. Go with him Sasuke, said the Sannin firmly. Sasuke closed his eyes and growled with frustration, trying not to give in, but soon surrendered with a pained breath and glared at Orochimaru. Good boy, said Orochimaru. Now go. Kabuto and Sasuke turned, slowly making their way out of the room. Just before stepping over the threshold, Sasuke turned back and smiled wickedly over his shoulder at Orochimaru. I am going to K you, said the Uchiha. You can stake anything on that. Whatever, said the Sannin as Kabuto closed the heavy steel door behind him, leaving Orochimaru and Minato alone in the empty concrete room deep underground. He's growing more rebellious by the day, said the fourth. Are you sure we can still trust him? Orochimaru took a deep breath and wiped the blood off his nails, then turned to Minato and shrugged. Actively, there's very little Sasuke can do to physically hurt us. Orochimaru groaned. He's still, and always will be, incapable of disobeying me. The only harm he can do is leaking information out like he has been doing by sending out shadow clones that are under the control of the free part of his mind. He can be as vocal as he likes though. How does he do that? Asked the fourth. How does he keep part of his mind free from your control? It's a trick of the Mangekyo, said the snake. His seal works by allowing me into his consciousness so I can reorder the way he perceives things. For it to work perfectly though, I have to dig through his memories and thoughts and his desires so they can be reorganized, but when I tried to take over his mind the first time he used his Mangekyo to perfectly memorize every detail about a simple pebble and burn the image onto his mind. Whenever I try to get in, he senses it and focuses on that pebble, or some other image he's memorized, to the exclusion of all else. Essentially all I can see when I'm in there is a big wall of pebble. Thus I can't make him think about his memories, so I can't see them to reorder them. Strange, said the fourth, shrugging and stretching a bit. Only an Uchiha, muttered Orochimaru. Anyone else would have been completely susceptible, but not those damn Uchihas with that wonderful Sharingan. The worst part is that, for all the memories I changed, Sasuke has a backup of every one of them in the secure section of his mind. It's bothersome, but I'll get it eventually. Minato grinned. You know, really I should probably be fighting you, said the ex-Hokage. Yes, but, said Orochimaru. You have absolutely no choice. Your soul literally belongs to me, so you don't get to complain. I know, but it was interesting fighting Jiraiya. He's improved since ISD. At any rate, said the Sannin, ending the conversation, did you read over that letter Sasuke received from Naruto earlier today? I did. It was rather vague. There were lots of what I guessed were codes and passwords that I couldn't decipher, but Naruto said very clearly that he'll be out and alone scouting near Kiri in 5 days so he and Sasuke could meet. Foolish little children, said Orochimaru. We'll send Ino to intercept him on his way back to Konoha. Jiraiya won't be there to protect him this time and she'll have him for sure. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.